So today we're going to be talking about Israel and the war that recently broke out in this area of the Middle East between Israel and the Hamas. Now, I do know that this is a fairly sensitive topic. There are a lot of people who are dead, who are injured, displaced, missing. There's some horrific stuff happening over here right now. So remember that this is a sensitive event for some people. Of course, for us people who live very far away from this conflict, it's very easy just to look at this kind of thing and say, oh, wow, oh, that's a lot of people who are dying. But when you're closer and you're involved in this kind of action and stuff, it is a lot more meaningful for those people. So with that in mind, we're going to be talking about the events. We're going to be talking about what has happened over this past 3 to 4 days. I'll be giving some opinions. We'll be looking at what the world is responding and if this could lead to anything further, because right now it certainly looks like it can lead to something bigger, but we'll be focusing in on what has happened and how it's happened and so on and so forth. So as we know, or as most of you probably know, Israel was the target of hundreds of rocket attacks by the Hamas organization. Hamas, I was saying it wrong. Doesn't really matter though, because they've killed thousands of people already, so that's not really a good thing. It's a militant group that resides within Palestine. It's kind of considered like they're not their government, but it's considered like one of the higher ranking things that happen within that country. But they did carry out large attacks upon Israel. Thousands of people, like I said, have been killed. Those people are not only Israelis, but people across the world. There's been a few Americans killed, Canadians. I mean, I'm sure there's like people from all around the world and from different countries who have been affected by this. There's people that are missing, people that you may never hear about them ever again. So it's a very serious topic, and Israel has promptly responded to this. Now the issue with their response is that once again the Hamas, they reside within Palestine, and in order to get to them you have to go through Palestine, and unfortunately Palestinian civilians are kind of there. And if you know, so far there's been a lot of rocket attacks, and that's exactly how Israel has responded. So there's been a lot of rocket targets within Palestine, and unfortunately that has led to hundreds of Palestinian deaths who have nothing to do with what the Hamas have done. So it's very unfortunate. Of course violence is not good at all, and just because thousands were killed in Israel, it doesn't necessarily justify hundreds dying in Palestine. I'm sure that number will rise, unfortunately, but the loss of life on either side is not justified. So of course Israel will take actions to defend itself. Some people are going to go ahead and say that we should support Israel. Some people should say that we need to remember that Palestine is there and that we can't allow for Israel to do what they might intend to do, which is to kind of go into Gaza and siege it and take it over. This is also a very opinionated topic, so you may recognize Palestine as a country, you may not. Me personally, I think it is like a sovereign entity, so there is some consideration for me, in my opinion, on what should be happening, what is happening. All in all, of course, there should not be the large death that is happening, which is very unfortunate, but that is what's happening, and that's the nature of how humans kind of respond to each other. Anyway, if we can stop looking at this map here, because we already know what it looks like, basically Israel versus Palestine, but it's on a very more specific scale. Most notably though, the most of things that are happening are over here in the Gaza Strip, so it's likely that Israel will just straight up annex that area from Palestine. If we go ahead and go over to CNN's website here, I use them for news source, it's just news, but they basically have a really good timeline and breakdown of what's happening over in Israel, and I'll be going over some of the key points and articles that they have so far. So of course the US is worried about citizens that were already in Israel. The US isn't the only country that's doing this. CNN is a American-based news network, so of course there's going to be more coverage of American-based topics in relation to the event as opposed to worldwide topics. But CNN does do a pretty good job at covering international stuff as well. So the EU backtracks on Palestinian aid suspension. Here we have the US basically saying that they had no intention of putting troops on the ground in Israel, which you take that as you will. Me personally, I don't think that we should be sending troops over there because it's a foreign affair. Kind of just, I mean, you can't let it be how it is right now. You can't also use troops from your own country. Just you don't want to get involved. I don't think there are other ways to get involved without having to spend your own troops' lives. And once again, I do want to reiterate, I'm not picking any sides. I neither of these sides have done good things. It's very hard to say, because I know that everyone in the comments will have opinions on it, and maybe I shouldn't say anything about this, but I want to more so cover it than I do want to give my own opinion. But you know, thousands of Israelis have died from the attacks by the Hamas. Some people are equating this to Israel's own 9/11, which, as we know, for Americans, 9/11 was horrible. So if that gives you a better perspective on it, then so be it. So as of now, it does look like the Hamas organization does have like 100 Israeli hostages in Gaza. So remember, the Gaza Strip is that area on the map that I showed earlier. Relatively small, but that is where the majority of the Hamas things are happening. So what does Iran have to do with this? I've been kind of scrolling through the timeline, looking at things that I think should be shared and things that kind of relate to my channel, what I like to cover, which is, you know, possible wars, fictional wars, so on and so forth. This conflict can lead into a very large scale war. It has the possibility of doing so. It likely will not, but the possibility is there, and it's growing every day that this conflict continues. So that's why it's kind of important for the world to come together and stop this from, you know, escalating. So Iran, they likely, more than likely, are the ones funding Hamas, the organization. It says here, according to US intelligence, that the Iranians, they give them funding, weapons, and training. So that's where the tension between Israel and Iran comes from. Not only is there a religious spite, you know, Israel is a Jewish country in the Middle East, which the Middle East is dominantly Arab and Muslim. So you kind of get the whole religion conflict, but when you go look at the history of the area, how Palestine technically was there first and then Israel kind of popped up, you can kind of understand why there's some spite between the countries, but it doesn't, no way does it justify any sort of violence. So it looks like here the US is backing Israel. Of course, we all know this. America is very heavily pro-Israel, but looks like they're sending more equipment over to Israel, of course, because they're close allies. The US sells lots of weapons to Israel. That's very profitable for the United States. And of course, you know, American citizens have died in this. So it's important to remember that America's response, of course, will be biased because their own citizens were killed in the Hamas attacks. So they're obviously going to go ahead and even furthermore support the side of which was attacked, and you know, they're on the same side. So I mean, here you go, 11 Americans at least. There's reports saying that there's definitely going to be more soon. It's just very unfortunate how the world, or I guess I should more so call out the UN, they don't do anything. And they're you know, you can say that you can't do much because in these type of conflicts that are like domestic, hateful conflicts, it's hard to stop them because of just the history of it and how it's all built up. But you have to like think like there's definitely something that can be done. Here we have Gaza death toll 687. That's a lot of people. 3,700 injured. And also additionally, I'm not seeing it here, but the United States is sending some naval vessels, specifically an aircraft carrier, over to the coast of Israel. So that's obviously for like intelligence gathering and support if needed. Not support like direct support, but if Israel, like, I don't know, if they need to, you know what, never mind. Don't know where I'm going with that, but it's there. But if for some reason it gets attacked, we're screwed, because then there will be US boots within Israel and Palestine. And well, that could definitely fuel a world conflict. Reports have already shown that Russia has some sort of involvement with this. I don't know what many other countries are saying at this point, because this is a pretty fresh conflict, fresh topic. You're seeing it on Wednesday, which is unfortunate, but at this point it's still coverable. Gaza Strip under heavy bombardment. So of course Israel is technically, they're targeting the Hamas, but also they're hitting Palestinian civilians. They had nothing to do with it, so that's not good, that's bad. But Israel is also defending itself at the same time, but they're defending themselves in a very brutal and unjust and kind of reckless way. And of course, if you guys are more knowledgeable about the topic, which most of you, or maybe a lot of you are, let everyone know in the comments. Let me know. I love to learn about this kind of stuff. Of course, other people, if there's any form of misinformation, which I don't think there is because I've been taking everything directly from here, then let me know in the comments. Let people know this isn't something that like we should all yell at each other about, something that we should inform everyone about. I'm gonna go ahead and hop over to live UA map. This is kind of irrelevant right now because we have another war happening over here in Israel. As we can see here, conflict. Not good. You see the heavy amount of bombardments that's been happening. The orange is Israel, the red is the Hamas, I believe. Looks like that Lebanon has been kind of hit by the Israelis as well. Once again, just reckless response by Israel. Lebanon is most certainly on the side of the Hamas in this scenario. Well, I don't want to say they're on the side of Hamas, but they're in the spirit of Palestine, which may also indirectly be Hamas. As we know, a lot of the Middle Eastern countries are just calling on everyone to cease the slaughter. Erdogan of Turkey actually said peace cannot be restored in the region unless a free sovereign Palestinian state is established, which take that as you will. Personally, and unfortunately, that's true. But even then, if a sovereign Palestinian state is established, I highly doubt that the violence would end over here. It's just the history. You would have to look at the history. I'm not going to explain it, but it's just, there's no real way that this would be able to work out. It is really unfortunate, but that's just kind of how it is. So looking at the future of this, I don't think Palestine gets fully annexed by Israel, because if they were to do that, then, well, there would be an international response. Actually, maybe not international, but definitely national. Lebanon would get drawn in, Syria would get drawn in, as well as Iran. Israel would most certainly call on their allies to help them out, in which this case would be the United States. The US would most certainly come to the aid of Israel in this scenario. Likely we could see Turkey get involved. I don't know how likely it is. It would more likely actually be Turkey doing its own kind of thing, like working with the United States but also doing Turkish things in Syria. I don't see very many other countries getting involved. Like, worst case scenario, absolute worst case, Russia gets involved and we have World War III, because if Russia gets involved, that's, you know, that's war with the United States. NATO gets involved, and then, you know, so hopefully that doesn't happen. It's very unlikely that that happens, so nothing to freak out about. Absolute worst case scenario, this is what we have: US versus Iran. If you're in the United States, you probably shouldn't worry about that. If you're in the United States, you don't really have to, well, you do have to worry about it because your country's at war, but you don't have to worry about like dying. Whereas if you're at war with Russia, then you might want to watch out for those long-range missiles. But Iran doesn't have the capabilities to hit the, I mean, they might, but the US has the capabilities to stop that from happening. So yeah, this is worst case scenario though. I think the most likely thing that can happen, if anything, is Lebanon getting involved. And even then, if they were to get involved, Israel would get involved, and then that dominoes into the US getting involved. So most likely scenario is just, you know, Israel going after the Hamas. I don't really know how this ends as of now. Too early to know. Maybe by the time this video is out, there'll be more information. I could put out an extra video. I'm not too sure. But yeah, that's gonna do it for today. So I hope you guys found this video informing. If you did, make sure to show some support. It's greatly appreciated. Let me know in the comments your opinion, any things that I missed that I should have said, any corrections, or if you just want to let us all know a history lesson, let us know something that we missed or something, just comments. That's why they're there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And of course, thank you to all the super fans, which include Matthew Newman, Yam Yam, Kali Speaks Plays, Shadow Gamer Z, Deva Edits, Mr. Bonk 7, Hammer Toad 45, Patrick Clauser, Connor the Gamer, Texan Cowboy Cheese, Poland Country Ball, Yakko, Nevada Garbage Trucks, DW Cool Dude, Soviet Ball, and Serminator. Once again, thank you guys.